Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Yona of the Dawn, chapter 206. When we last left our heroes, Mei-Nyan had broken into Hawk's cell to try to get Hawk as an ally. Considering that he is such a dangerous criminal, he requires 4 guards, surely he will want to break out. And she was shocked to learn that Hawk had no desire to break out. He wanted to stay put for Yona's sake, to not cause Yona any trouble. Of course, Mei-Nyan has not quite put 2 and 2 together, that the person Hawk cares so much for is Yona. But anyway, Mei-Nyan tries to escape on her own, to go back to the garden to find her little squirrel friend Ho. When she can't do that, she kind of has a breakdown, and that, coupled with sort of her wounds, accrued over the course of 204, leads to her finally collapsing, where she is found by Yoon, who kind of nurses her back to health. Yoon, meanwhile, is sort of being offered a job in the medical corps in case war breaks out with Kai. We see Yona learning about Mei-Nyan's breakout. And then we check in with the returning home South Kai delegation as they meet up with this guy General Vol and tell him that Mei-Nyan had left before them and should be back with Chogol by now. But Vol just looks very unhappy with them in general, which, like, A+ from me. But yeah, that's all where we left off. Let's dive right on into chapter 206, The Discarded Things One at a Time. And we open with a little bit of a narrator's blurb. The delegation finally found their way to South Kai's capital, Jijing, after having left Koka Kingdom. We see this sort of like, attendant kind of guy announcing to Chogol, "Your Highness Chogol, the delegates have returned." And we see Chogol kind of like leaning on it, just like from like the nose down, sort of leaning on his hand. "Have you brought Princess Yona, the woman said to have murdered Lantan?" And the delegates is sort of hem and haw. "And what of Suwon's apology? Did he prostrate himself?" Our deepest apologies, my lord. We've been thwarted by King Suwon in our attempts to pursue the case of Lantan." And Chogol, who we finally, I think this is the first time we've seen him. He is a bald man with like a tattoo, but might be a bird on the side of his head. He sort of mockingly asks the delegates, "And what have you accomplished with these high-level talks then, you bastards? Nothing more than getting rid of that nuisance Lantan?" So here, they have absolutely no problem with just casually talking about how they're the ones who killed Lantan. "You should have turned down the offer of a funeral or whatever and returned at once. How incompetent can you be? Incidentally, what happened to Mei-Nyan?" Now it's time for them to realize that Mei-Nyan never came home. And this other attendant tells Chogol, "Allow me to humbly convey that Lady Mei-Nyan's whereabouts are currently unknown." And Chogol kind of looks at Mr. Longbeard angrily, who then just goes on to say, "We beg your forgiveness. We were told back in Koka Kingdom that Lady Mei-Nyan had departed home ahead of us. We didn't know." And then we see Princess Consort Shantae listening to this. "We were completely aware that she hadn't returned." And Shantae asks, "Since it's her we're talking about it, isn't she just fooling around somewhere?" Let's all admit, she's quite the wild creature." And then Mr. Longbeard goes on, "Indeed she is. If I may add, on seeing King Suwon, Lady Mei-Nyan stroked quite the mellifluous tone as if they were intimate." Mellifluous, a word which here means, Google, sweet or musical, pleasant to hear. So sort of flirty is what he's getting at there. "Afterwards, she told us in a suggestive way that she was sure Suwon would want to see her again. That was the last we saw of her." And so Shantae asks, "Then are you saying she's formed a liaison with King Suwon?" I wonder whether that was her goal in joining the delegation. So here's a question, though, is that... So Shantae is listed as a princess consort and as a concubine. So she's not married. If so, she'd be a wife, not a concubine. I know that Chogol, because Lantan's whole thing, right, was that the South Kai nobles were, fawning over Chogol and not the actual emperor up in North Kai. So is Shantae like the daughter of the North Kai emperor that Chogol has kind of taken for his consort? Or what exactly is going on there? Is that a translation issue? I just don't know. Anyway, we then come back to General Vol, who seems to be on like a rooftop or something. And this eye-patched wearing man, or like soldier, comes up to him, Vol. And Vol greets him as General Hitan, which I guess is his name. And Hitan asks, is it true what people are saying? That Mei-Nyan, no, Lady Mei-Nyan is missing? I like a little bit there of, we learned a while back that Mei-Nyan was a general or a strategist at first. And so at first, Hitan treats her as if she's like another member of the military before remembering her role as a consort and adds that kind of Lady Mei-Nyan. But anyway, Vol just kind of calmly says, I don't really understand what happened, but she hasn't returned. From the beginning, something smelled fishy about these high-level talks. And Hitan presses, you mean Lord Lantan's death? And Vol responds, he's obviously been smoked out by our side, right? So they're not afraid to talk about the sort of scheming of the Kai delegation, which either speaks to their relative status in society, that they wouldn't get in trouble if they did talk about it, or the fact that it's just very much an open secret in Kai. Everyone in Kai knows, they don't really give a damn that Chapel had Lantan killed. But anyway, Hitan goes on, do you think Lady Mei-Nyan got caught up in that? And Vol responds, no. I knew she was going, you see. She came to greet me before they left. And we see this flashback of Mei-Nyan's coming to Vol. Farewell, it's been decided that I shall be joining the delegation. Oh. And Vol looks at her, huh? I've only come here because my little hoe said it wanted to see your face. Well, bye. Okay, so she uses her squirrel as like an excuse to see Vol. And Vol takes that as, doesn't that mean that already back then she had no intention of returning? She had wanted to go to the Crimson Dragon Castle all along for some reason. Even as the chief, this is a Hitan, even as the chief mistress, she has no dearth of enemies. Being a general probably suits her better. So, suits her nature better, which is, I think Mei-Nyan would agree with that. She wants to be sort of the scheming one and not some pretty face. And then Hitan asks, what did she have in mind by going to a country that might soon be destroyed? And we leave with that. We come back to Hak in his cell asking, released? And it's Kai-suk. We request your cooperation for the time being. The job is to track down and capture that Mei-Nyan woman who broke out. And Hak asks, you want me to capture her? She's a subject of South Kai who got her hands on Koka Kingdom's greatest secret. Besides, if we don't capture as soon as possible a woman who's killed numerous soldiers, there are bound to be more victims. And Hak, really pressing his luck here, asks, does this greatest secret have something to do with Suwon? Like, Hak knows. He's just doing this to taunt Kai-suk, I think. Don't go... When Kai-suk does not answer, Hak goes on, don't go silent on me. You put me in this cell to protect that secret. You must badly want her captured to let me out. No. Let me try again. You must badly want her captured to let me out. No. And Kai-suk does not answer. He just turns around and leaves. And Hak just sort of watches him go. And just kind of, calmly responds, well, I got to go out for a little. And then we come back to Yoon and Mei-Nyan. I'm curious. Like, I'm assuming Hak will find Yoon with Mei-Nyan. And he's not going to, turn on Yoon for the sake of his mission. But I'm curious what's going to happen once we reach that point. Anyway, Yoon tells Mei-Nyan as he goes to leave, get some rest, okay? And as soon as he closes the door, Mei-Nyan gets right back up and goes looking inside this cabinet. And she sees, found it! He leaned a sword against some piece of furniture? Gosh. So I guess she was looking, I think she was looking for her sword. She had a sword and then it was missing when she woke up. Anyway, she goes to sneak out of the room, which makes me think that she will not be found with Yoon at all. And then she sees a pair of soldiers walking by her hiding spots. One of them says to the other, they're saying the woman who broke out is a beauty with long hair. I want to get a look at her. All right, you horny guy. His friend stops him. Are you an idiot? A lot of sentries were murdered. Don't let your guard down. And we can hear Mei-Nyan's heart. She is kind of panicking at the fact that she's not full on panic like we saw in the middle of last chapter, but she's not confident right now, I don't think. Anyway, she thinks to herself, they're looking for me. I have to find my little hoe and quick. That Yoon brat must be suspicious of me too. He might bring someone here. Does Yoon know that there's a missing woman who like broke out of jail? Because I don't think he knows. Or else he would have commented on that, I think. But then, I knew it was about to happen. She holds her long hair, flashing back to what the guard said. They're saying she's a beauty with long hair. She's about to cut all that off. That's my bet. But anyway, Yoon has picked up some things. I ended up running late. Gotta go back quick. And he sees someone in the woods. And yeah, it's Mei-Nyan. Yoon asks, what are you doing? And she turns back and we see Mei-Nyan now with like about my length hair. Looks back at him. And she just says, I'm looking for something. And then Yoon has already put together who she is. Why'd you cut your hair? And Mei-Nyan dashes. And Yoon grabs her. Wait a second. Wait. And Mei-Nyan asks, how do you know? She thinks even the soldiers in this area didn't have a clue. But Yoon tells her, I don't forget the faces of my patients. Also, like the soldiers haven't seen her. All they know is beauty, long hair. Get rid of the long hair and she's just some face. But Yoon is like, Yoon took care of her for a night. Anyway, Mei-Nyan crumbles once again thanks to the illness. Cut it out. And she's still able to like throw Yoon away. But Yoon presses, what are you even doing? Don't you know you're still injured? But she just sort of mutters out, my little hoe. And Yoon is kind of confused. Your little hoe? It's like this. And she like makes the shape of hoe in her hand. And Yoon asks, another Pukyu? But Mei-Nyan says, I think it must be hungry. And Yoon looks at her for a second and sort of rubs her face, gets the dirt off of it. And then tells her, completely genuinely, more than happy to like help this stranger, because Yoon's just a good kid and we love him. I'll look for your little hoe tomorrow, as soon as the sun goes up. For now, go back and drink your barley and rice soup, okay? I don't have a proper bathtub, but I've heated some water, so you can wash your body. And Mei-Nyan's kind of shocked there, before collecting herself and sort of teasing him. Just the two of us in that room? Are we going to scrub each other's backs? What a precocious brat, huh? But Yoon snaps, you're wrong. There's a partitioning screen, And then we cut to that night, with Mei-Nyan, behind the screen, washing herself. We see she's like covered in dirt and blood from her escape, and she's not really had a chance to wash over the past few days. And we see Yoon on the other side of the screen, and he's making some like crushing some herbs, I think, and thinks, gosh, she said some weird stuff, and now I'm nervous, even though I kept my cool while examining her. And Mei-Nyan calls from behind the screen, want to scrub my back? So we're seeing she's kind of using some of that seduction. It feels like she's leaning back on the seduction tactic we saw back in 204 that, didn't really work for Hawk at all, but maybe they'll work for Yoon in her mind. Yoon just snaps, I'm fine. And we see Mei-Nyan kind of chuckle, and Yoon thinks, a wounded woman who cut her hair all messy. It kind of resembles the first time I met Yona. Now there's a good fucking flashback. That takes me back. Way, way back. But then we hear a knock on the door. And Yoon goes to open. Yes, who's there? At a time like this. And there is Hawk! I was right the first time. I second-guessed myself and Mei-Nyan left. But Hawk did find Yoon and Mei-Nyan together. It was just a casual, yo. And Yoon is happy to see him, not knowing that he's hunting his patient. Whoa, what's happened? This is so sudden. But Hawk just, maybe even honestly says, oh, I was just wondering whether you're okay. And Yoon just goes on, same for me, I've been worried about you all this time. Must be how it feels to ask yourself whether that stupid country bumpkin of a son who said he was going to become a foot soldier is still alive. And Hawk stops him. Yoon, I was aiming to become an exclusive bodyguard and not a foot soldier at all. But then Hawk sort of steers the conversation. What's up? Are you on your day off now? Let me read that. Let me read that one again. Are you on your day off now? Well, is now a good time? And Yoon kind of mutters, now's kinda... Can we talk outside? And Hawk asks, do you have guests? Guests is not how I would... And then he sees Judo, who's going to be much less generous towards Yoon in this situation than Hawk would be. Whoa, General Judo? Why? And Judo steps past him. I'm going inside. Wait a sec. He calls out to him. And there's Mei-Nyan. She's put a robe on and she is on the attack, going for Judo, shocking him. What? But Judo readies his blade, counters Mei-Nyan, and the two of them just start sword fighting. But then, to counter the fact that they both have one sword each, I think Mei-Nyan grabs like a candlestick and throws it. It's like one of those larger candle, like brazier sort of things. She throws it. Hawk kind of like covers Yoon from the attack. And then she goes to attack Hawk, who defends himself with that same candlestick. And he, with that, throws Mei-Nyan back because, you know, he's kind of he is the Thunder Beast after all. Mei-Nyan hits the ground and groans. Ugh. And Hawk and Yoon sort of stare at her. Yoon, of course, has no idea what's going on. He has no idea why his patient just all of a sudden has attacked Hawk and Judo. And Mei-Nyan sort of stares at the two of them, exhausted, but, you know, in no way having given up. And Mei-Nyan notes him, you are the guy doing sit-ups in that cell. Didn't you say you weren't going to leave that place? But Hawk tells her, I was summoned and told to capture you. And Yoon, who has heard none of this, because he has been off stage left since, like, pre-flashback. What? Cell? Capture? And Hawk just tells him it's a long story, but this woman was with the South Kai delegation. She's killed several soldiers. And Yoon is stunned that he has helped an enemy of Koka, knowing that she was wandering around the castle with a sword. I came here to check that you were unharmed. So she really was here. So he was just going to be nice to Yoon, and unbeknownst to him, Yoon had found the target and was nursing her back to health. And Judo just says, we can't afford to let her live. We're taking her. And Yoon is just stunned. And we see a throb on a panel of Mei-Nyan. I think that's more of Mei-Nyan kind of panicking. Because Mei-Nyan is, like, she has some skills to generalize a pose, but she's not perfect, especially when it's her on her own. And Mei-Nyan just sort of sighs, I knew it. So you were an enemy too. That being said, we can just continually see the throbbing in her heart. And she thinks, I'm going to die no matter what. She says out loud, all that awaits me is being murdered by the likes of Suwon. And she charges at Hawk. And then Yoon calls, wait, Thunder Beast. And that gets Mei-Nyan to stop. Because we know she's been after the Thunder Beast as part of her big Yona revenge plot. Thunder Beast? This guy? Looking at Hawk, who's sort of standing there, not terribly impressive looking. But Hawk tells him, Yoon, she's dangerous. Fall back. But Yoon stops. I'm sorry, but this woman is injured. And Judo snaps, that woman has killed soldiers. You need not feel sympathy for her. And Yoon, we see him shaking. But he stands up, fights for her anyway. That may be so. And yet, and he thinks, I have thought she looked kind of dangerous. And yet, still, she's my patient. That's my boy, standing up for what he fucking believes in. It might be a bad thing to stand up for someone who's killed people. Those people certainly didn't want to die. I hate violence. My doing this without regard for the consequences may cause trouble to many people in the future. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I'm sorry, but I'm studying medicine in this place. The reason I came to this castle is that I want to heal people. That's all there is to it. And Hawk sort of takes in his resolve as the chapter ends. Okay, so I really love this chapter. Yoon is great. I've missed him. It's been so long. I can barely. I don't want to say I barely remember Yoon, but like the last time I read Yoon actually doing something was a long, long time ago, and it's nice to see him as both incredibly intelligent and also brave. You know, he has two of the strongest soldiers in the kingdom staring him down, trying to kill his patient. and he still stands before them. You know, I have my resolve, and I could look at the next page and see what happens next, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow. Because for now, it's just him standing in front of Hawk and Judo. Hawk, of course, I personally think the only reason Hawk is actually kind of standing against Yoon at all right now is just because Judo is there. If it were just Hawk, Yoon, and Mei-Nyan, Hawk would be a lot more receptive to Yoon. But with Judo there, he can't really let Mei-Nyan go. But still, just either way, standing up to Hawk and Judo like this takes incredible guts for Yoon, and you love to see it. It's some great shit. But yeah, beyond that, this chapter is more just sort of, I guess, reestablishing Yoon. Again, it's been a long time since Yoon has done anything, and so it's important that we have these first sort of, or these like middle 10 pages, all being, you know, Yoon seeing his kindness, but his intelligence, as he's like well aware that Mei-Nyan with short hair is still Mei-Nyan. His desire to help the injured. Like it's a lot of establishing moments with Yoon, which is great for me, for someone who's been off this train for so long. But yeah, this is a great time. We also have some more stuff over in Kai, which really is just more setting up these characters. Most of them are characters we've never met before. Choggle we've heard about for a while. Shantae is new. We're seeing, though, Shantae is sort of not exactly a fan of Mei-Nyan, as is most of the nobility. Besides Choggle, we don't get to see a lot of what Choggle thinks here. I imagine we'll get more of that as this arc goes on. But it fits kind of what's pretty easy to imagine. She's the sort of soldier woman who's sort of socially elevated to consort or concubine or something like that. And the established nobility don't really like her. But we see when we come to Val and Hitan, they do. They have an established rapport with her. They generally kind of get along with her. So yeah, there's some interesting things there, but it's more just sort of expanding on things we kind of could have assumed. And then yeah, we have this big sort of action sequence with Mei-Nyan and Hawk and Judo, which leads to, of course, what I've already said about Yoon standing up for her and for his beliefs as a doctor. It's good shit. It is good shit. Yona is good. And yeah, I don't know, it's a great chapter. I can't wait to see how all of this plays out going forward. I can't wait to see sort of the ramifications of Yoon stepping up for Mei-Nyan. But for now, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. You know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!